Okay, so here's what I'm thinking, right? Kamsky is fucking weird. And I was thinking about how Connor is so weird just during the entirety of the game, which it was fucking me up. So I was trying to think of an explanation for it, which got me into some thinking. And then I was thinking that Kamsky probably has something to do with it because he's weird, which got me to thinking more. And basically, these are my thoughts, okay? Kamsky left Cyberlife, as we all know. He used to be the CEO before he quit, retired, something. I don't know. Basically, he left Cyberlife, and now he's living a glorious lifestyle filled with sex robots that aren't actually sex robots, but he's a weird gremlin, so he's using them as sex robots. The Chloe's, they're great. But he left Cyberlife, yes. But I think that before he left, he fucked with some shit. So you know, like those YouTube trolls, right? You know that image you have in your head where they're just kind of like hunched over their computer and they're just like giggling to themselves and just like banging on their keyboards like that. You know that image, like the little fucking gremlins. That's how I imagine Kamsky, except instead of typing nasty YouTube comments, he's just like fucking with coding. So before he left, the newest what the fuck is it called? Android model line, whatever. The new line of Androids was the OK line, meaning like OK 200, OK 700, OK 900, whatever. That line, like the line of OK Androids. And I think that before he left, he sort of did a last hurrah. Like, you know, like a senior prank? Like, it's like one last trick that you do before you leave and then you can't be in trouble for it. Like that shit. I think that's what he did. So, like, before he left Cyberlife, he kind of just, like, got into the coding of, like, the OK line, and he was just, like, giggling to himself, like, smashing his little nasty gremlin fingers against the keyboard and just, like, fucking with shit. Because I was thinking, it makes sense, because he's an asshole, and, you know, he just, like, does what he wants. And I was also thinking it would explain why Connor is so weird, and it would explain a few other things as well. So, there are only 4 OK androids that we meet in the game. There's OK 200, Marcus. There's OK 800, Connor. There's OK 860, who is the android that attacked Hank and Connor in Cyberlife Tower. And then there's OK 900, who is also known as Nines. And in the game, he really didn't do much, but he did do a little bit. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. So Marcus was very weird because Kamsky gave him to Carl Manfred, who was a weird guy because he was talking about, you know, you're going to have to make a decision. You have to do what's right. You have to be in control of your life. Like all these things, talking about being in control and decisions and doing what's right and all of this. He's talking about Marcus making choices and Marcus doing something important. Even though it makes absolutely no sense. Because at the point that he's saying that, the revolution is nothing. Like, the revolution doesn't exist. Marcus has not started the revolution. Marcus hasn't even deviated at that point. So why would Carl be talking about all of this stuff? And why would Kamsky even give Marcus to Carl unless he told Carl to do this and unless he had plans for Marcus? I don't know, but it's weird. And then Connor. Connor is also weird because he deviated before he deviated, which doesn't make much sense, except it does. So as we all know, Connor deviated when he was about to kill Marcus, and Marcus was like, hey, don't do that. Why are you killing me? Don't you want to be free? And then Connor was like, shit, yeah, I do. And then he deviated and helped with the revolution. That's when Connor deviated. We all know that. Well, if he deviates in the game. But if he does deviate, that's when he deviates. We all know that. That's obvious. But if that is when he deviates, then why does he show so many signs of deviation way before that point? Like when he was faced with the Tracys. Obviously, we're glad he didn't shoot them, but it would have made sense for him to shoot them. because he was an undeviated android, and shooting him was part of the mission. And obviously, yes, morals, they're in love. She killed in self-defense. We're glad he didn't shoot them. And that makes sense, but not for an undeviated android who's being told by the people that he's supposed to take orders from to kill them. It makes absolutely no sense. And like with Chloe, obviously, Chloe didn't do anything wrong. Don't shoot her. That's mean. Shooting people is mean. But it would have made so much sense for him to shoot her. Because for an android who is supposed to be just following orders, for an android with no rights, shooting Chloe would have meant nothing. Because he knew that she could be easily replaced and that she's just an android. Her life doesn't have any value, right? And by not shooting her, he was prohibiting himself from completing his mission, which is the opposite of what he wants. And there would have been no reason to not shoot her besides morals, but he's not supposed to have those. So why wouldn't he shoot her? It doesn't make sense. And like when he was on the roof with Hank had a very high percentage of survival, and yet he chose to ignore his mission of going after the deviant to help him instead. That doesn't make sense. Among other things, like how he has absolutely no regard for Hank's orders whatsoever. Hank tells him to do one thing, he does the exact other. And of course, there are instances in which that makes sense, because following Hank's orders would stop him from completing his mission, but there are other instances in which ignoring Hank has absolutely no benefit to him, except for just being a little shit. Like, he just likes pissing Hank off. And while it's hilarious, it doesn't make sense for an undeviated android. And, I mean, this is because I love dogs. He shouldn't like dogs. I mean, I know dogs are great, we love them, Sim was amazing, but he shouldn't like dogs. He shouldn't give a shit about whether Hank likes dogs or not. He shouldn't care about, he shouldn't be trying to like Hank's music. He's just desperate for Hank's approval. And he likes dogs. And that's great. That's adorable. We love it. But that doesn't make any sense for an android who's supposed to not have any emotions or likes or wants or preferences. So for an android who has no emotions, no wants, he doesn't like anything, he's not supposed to have any preferences, why is he trying to get this lieutenant to like him? And why does he seem to like this dog? Androids are not supposed to like dogs. Androids aren't supposed to like anything. And yet he does. He deviated before he deviated. And then there is the RK-860, the android who attacked Hank and Connor in Cyberlife Tower. And he was an RK-800 just like Connor was. And I think that means something because, yes, while 60 was very mission obsessed, and on first glance, he isn't deviated, he showed emotions just like Connor did. While he wasn't deviated, while he was still following orders, and he was still focused on his mission, he had emotions. He was very clearly angry about what? I don't know, but he was angry about something. He was mad. He was yelling at them. He was attacking him. And obviously, attacking him pertained to his mission because his mission was to take them down. But he seemed like he was trying to take revenge on them, or that he was angry at them for something. What? I don't know. But he had this fire in him that androids aren't supposed to have. And right before he was taken down by Hank, he had, I don't know, this look about him. Like, he realized he failed and he was upset about it. Which is depressing, but androids shouldn't be upset. Androids shouldn't be angry. And if we had more screen time for him, I think we would have seen more that would have been just as similar to Connor's situation. Unfortunately, we didn't have more screen time for him, but just in that little bit that we had, I think it's enough evidence to prove that he was similar to Connor in more ways than one may see at first glance. And then there's the last RK-900. While his situation is almost even more difficult than 60 because he had even less screen time, and worse, he had no words, I think that there is just enough evidence to back me up. he had pretty much no personality because he had no words. He didn't make any actions. He just stood there silently for the entire time that we saw him. But sometimes actions speak louder than words. And while it wasn't his own action, while it wasn't something he chose to do, it was a completely unwilling action. I think sometimes unwilling actions speak louder than actions that we choose. He's just standing there silently for the entire time Amanda and Connor are talking, but you can see his LED going red, and there's no reason for his LED to go red. Why would he be upset? He has no reason to be upset besides watching a fellow android be given a death sentence. Of course, Connor's about to be killed. It's very upsetting, but to an android that's supposed to have no value for another android's life, for an android that isn't in danger, so he shouldn't be concerned for himself, but he's not. He's concerned for someone else's. It's weird because he isn't supposed to care, and yet he does. He's upset, as you can see in his LED, and there's no reason for him to be. He's not in danger. There's nothing wrong except for Connor's life about to be taken away. And he shouldn't care about that. And yet, he does. Those are the only 4 OKs we meet in the game. Marcus, who was hand-delivered by Kamsky to a man who encouraged the revolution and Marcus's deviation before any signs of that ever showed. Connor, who deviated before he deviated. The other Connor, 60, who was similar to Connor in certain ways. And 900, who had no words but had a personality nonetheless. I don't know what the fuck was going on with them, but I think it says something that all of the OKs that we knew showed signs of deviation before they deviate, and they had such weird circumstances that should have never occurred, and yet they did. And why? I think it was because of Kamsky. Kamsky would have had the ability to get into CyberLife's code systems. He did work there, after all. He created androids. Of course he would have had access to that. Why wouldn't he? And he quit, yes, but he was still there for a time, and I think he had just enough time to be able to pull one last asshole move before he left. And that would also explain some of his actions when Connor and Hank were at his house. Why he slammed Chloe into the ground and told Connor to shoot her, because he knew he wouldn't. Because he was the one who gave him his morals. He was the one who gave him his sympathy and his feelings and his value for android life.